Hey, everybody, welcome back to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded Christian businessmen who desire momentum in their business, their family, and their finance get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own View from the Top. Hey, I am glad you're back listening with us today. Today, we've got a pretty cool episode. We've got a couple other guests or co-hosts with us. You've met them before, so we'll introduce them in just a moment, and then Big A is going to join us as well. Hey, we're going to jump into a topic today called From the Boardroom to the Playroom. So, man, any of you guys out there listening that struggle with how to, maybe balance isn't even the right word. We're probably going to talk about that today, but how do you handle the work-child relationship? Whether you go here, do this, how much effort, how much not effort, like what is, we all struggle with that. We hear it so many times. We're going to tackle it today with Big A and myself on one end of the spectrum, having kids out of the house and haven't gone through that. And then we've got two other guys, we'll introduce them here in just a moment, that are right in the middle of it. So we're glad that they're in with us today. So let's get everybody in here. So we've got Big A going to join us in the studio. We've got Anthony Witt back with us, and we've got Brett Barnhart with us as well. Welcome, guys, back to From the Top.
Glad to be here.
Excited to be in.
Man, good to see you guys. I looked at a picture just a few days ago, and it had three of us in the picture from 11 years ago. That was pretty cool. I was like, God, where did time go? Like, wow. This wasn't even going to be a thing, and now it's like a real thing. And three of you guys have been around for that duration. And Wally, I'm sorry, you wasn't in the picture, Wally. I'm sorry, man. But you wasn't in the picture.
Like
I wish
8 years isn't a long time anymore.
8 years is a long time, but yeah. Yeah, I think it was 11 years we were at Social Media Marketing World, and having a dinner is cool. Yeah. It was really cool. I'm really excited to have you guys, though, man. This is going to be a fun topic from boardroom to playroom. We're going to talk here just in a few minutes. But Wally, catch us up, man.
Yeah,
what's been going on?
A little different. Normally we have you guys on the Forge, and but today we're going to dive into a topic because we value where you guys are at and your opinions, and obviously we know where you're coming from, and you got a lot to share. So looking forward to that. And then Big A is going to introduce a topic here in a second. But before we do, I have a really, you might think it's a silly question, but I think we all deal with it. So the question is, do you talk with other strangers in a public restroom?
In a public restroom?
Yep.
Strangers.
There's only one stranger that I talk to in a public restroom. But I think it's weird. So, but do you ever guys ever feel awkward? You walk in, everybody's kind of standing there. Nobody says anything. Eye contact doesn't happen.
No.
Like, I mean, not that it's a place for social activity, but like, so I'll go first. So for me, I walk in, and if somebody like gets my eye attention, then I'll be like, hey, how's it going? Right. But beyond that, like that's it. I'm not looking across or anything. And then but if there's a guy in there that's cleaning the restroom, he's the only stranger that I'll actually like talk to. I'll be like, hey man, thank you so much for like taking care of this place, because you make it look a lot better when you're around. How about you guys? You guys like, are you social butterflies in the public restroom? Are you like total silent, or like what's the deal?
Total silence.
Yeah.
How do you even?
I'm with you.
What's the
I'm with you,
icebreaker? Like, how's your day?
Yeah.
What's going on?
What are you going to say?
Yeah.
Hey, I was in a public restroom about a month ago, and the guy was on his phone at the urinal. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this guy's carrying on a full-fledged business conversation, 10 guys lined up down the wall, and he's carrying on like he's at his desk.
No earbuds, right? He's like holding the phone.
No, he's on the phone.
On speakerphone.
On speakerphone. I seen it on speakerphone.
He is absolutely standing there, and everybody's hearing the whole conversation. All these knucklehead guys lined up at the urinal, and I'm like, what are you doing?
It's the urinal mastermind.
Yeah, the urinal mastermind. I guess it was. Yeah, it's like, well, first of all, it's like, doesn't he even care that there's a microphone on there? This guy could hear everybody. And I'm like, what are you?
Goosh. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like, no. Wally, no, there's no way I'm talking to anybody. I don't even know if I'm going to talk to the janitor in there or not, the guy cleaning it. Maybe.
I like to make him feel special, because
I've given him money before. I've given him like $20 and said, hey, man, thanks, and go buy your lunch or something. But
I have to say, though, it's probably most awkward at church.
Really?
Because you know half the people in there.
Interesting.
And you don't know whether to look at them or say anything or not, right? Like, yeah.
Like,
hey, how's things going?
Yeah.
What's up? How you been?
And you don't like, you don't want to be rude, but then again, it's like, no, you just don't do
This
that.
isn't the place.
No, they can get over it if they get mad.
Yeah. Or the guy coming out is going to shake your hand as you're walking in. It's like, no, I'm good.
It's just water. I did it to dry them off.
I just washed my hands. I'm good.
All right. Thank you guys for answering the question.
So we got 3 no's and 1 that will talk to the custodian. So other than that, don't expect any of the 3 of us to say hello to you in the bathroom. Listen, I want to talk to you about something that's really been a topic on my mind for maybe a decade, maybe longer. I've thought about it, but I've been really dealing with it for about a decade. And we've titled it Boardroom to Playroom. And what I'm referring to there is the amount of time that we work versus the amount of time that we're with our kids. And, my children obviously are grown and married and got kids, and, I got grandkids, and I still kind of deal with it though, right? Brooke's 40, Holly's 38, and I'm still dealing with this thing. Like, I want to be there for my kids. And at the same time, I want to be there, for my office, the team, and I want to make a living. And it's like this constant challenge. And I'll never forget a couple of decades ago, I came home and Robin came up to me real solemn, and she put her hands on my shoulders and she looked at me and she said, and when she said, I knew I was in trouble because there was a second coming. But she put her hands on my shoulders and she said, I want to thank you for all that you do for our family. Like, we get to live an amazing life. Like, we have a beautiful home. We had a vacation home at the time. And she said, we have nice cars and beautiful, furniture, and I don't have to work. And I just want you to know how appreciative I am. But I feel like a single mom.
Wow.
And when she said that, it just ripped my heart out. It was like, I first got defensive. I was like, well, you wouldn't have all these things and wouldn't get to stay at home if I wasn't working. And she said, I realize the difficulty, but I don't want to live a life by myself. And I want you here to go to Brooke and Holly's cheerleading practice and ball games and just be at home for dinner. And I was like, now I've got a quandary. Like, now my awareness has been heightened. What am I going to do? And so I had to really work through that. And it was a struggle because I'm very driven. And I know you guys are very driven as well. You got a bunch of kids, several of you do. And there's this challenge. And I thought it would be really helpful if we would get on and just tell our personal experiences and even find out if that's been a challenge for you and some of the things that you've done that's allowed you to overcome some of those obstacles. Is it still a challenge today? If so, what are you doing about that? And I just thought I'd open the discussion up. So yeah, if you feel good about the topic, jump in and give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So for me, the same thing, constant struggle still today. Luckily, Crystal and I had kids later on. I had been in business about 10 years before we had kids. So that helped. I can't imagine trying to start a business today with all that I had to put into the business then and still have a family life. I think it really comes down to, it's a choice. It's been a choice for me, and I either have to choose growth and huge or family, if you will, because I can't do both. If I say yes to that, I'm going to say no to this. So, I don't know. There's a lifestyle that I said I want to live in my life, and to some extent, I got to be okay, even as a business owner wanting to grow things, that this may just have to hold back for a while. I've told Crystal that too. Like, I went, I looked the other day in Parent Queue. I think I got 350 weeks left with Cole. I'm like 60% through the time that I have with him.
Wow.
And you said what, Brett? What was that you said?
It's called Parent Queue.
Parent Queue.
And it gives you tips on their age, and then it counts down the weeks that you have left with each child. It's pretty depressing when you open it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a good reminder. So yeah, it's like I can build something huge if I want to after they're gone. I don't know if I would. I'm not saying I would, but I want to be there now as much as I can. But
can we break that down a little further? Because I've been around for your journey ever since your children were born. And so I've watched you mature and grow. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I totally agree that you can't do both, but it's how you do both. And you've got a pretty good sized organization now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in comparison would look at what you're doing and say, there's no way I could grow that size. And you have 20 or 30 employees and you run a pretty good size company. And so in comparison to some other people, it's a small organization. In comparison to others, it's large. And so how did you decide? Like, how did you decide this is the place for you in this organization, this size, where you feel good about the time that you're in the playroom, not the boardroom?
Well, that goes back to, are you willing to give up profits to hire people to bring them into the organization to do those things so that you can have that time? But nobody wants to give that up either because they want to make all the money in the world. They want to do both, right?
That's hard.
And you know what's going to get cut first. So then...
Especially as soon as you have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I still remember I sold the jobs, I worked on the jobs, and I bid the jobs. So then I would bid till 10 o'clock at night. And I remember when we were hiring our first estimator, and I figured it up, and we needed to make another $1 million a year to maintain overhead and cost to stay competitive. So then I got held accountable to hire that person. And then within a year needed to make $1 million. Well, we didn't do it. It took about 1.5 years. But then that gave me that freedom to be able to do those things, to go to doctor's appointments, to take the kids to school, to be there in the morning with them, have breakfast with them, and do those things with them, and then go out through the day. So it was even hard in the marriage, going back to what Robin said, because at first it was hard for Crystal because even you bring two different people into a marriage, and she grew up and her parents are older, so her dad was home every night at 4:30. I grew up in a family where you got home and you went out and worked on stuff outside, and you didn't always eat together as a family. So it even created a whole new dynamic in the marriage, which then turned into the kids because how she grew up versus how I grew up. So I think going back to what you said about Robin, she respects that now and she understands that. But I think it's still hard for her sometimes because, I don't know, I go home, be honest with you guys, I want to go home and just like read stuff on my phone and check out. Like just check out because I'm totally exhausted from the day. And that's just a way of just disconnecting and checking out from everything. And I can't do that. So it's like, how many times do our families get the worst of us and our business or what we do every day gets the best of us? And that's usually how it goes. So,
Anthony, how about you? What's kind of been your journey?
I think my journey's quite a bit different than your guys'. I come from a big family, and I have a big family, and so there's
what's a big family?
7. So like 7. I'm one of 7, or I was one of 6. They adopted one right after I graduated. So, so one of 7. And so you can't physically go to your kids' events. Like that's not possible because you have one kid in cheerleading, one in volleyball, one in football, one in cross country, one in track. Which kid are you going to pick? And when are you going to feel guilty? And so we have that same dynamic now, even because we have 7. And so so we don't build our lives. I didn't grow up in a family that built their lives on going to the kids' events, and nor do we build our lives on going to our kids' events. Now, that also means that my kids don't do travel sports. Honestly, I think travel sports have ruined so many things. It's ruined sport, actually, in a lot of ways, but it's also ruined family. It's ruined some community programming. Anyway, it's another one of my little... I think it's one of my little things that bothers me. But
I'm going to have some guys back for that topic. Yeah.
But travel.
I get some of these high D dads. I listen to this podcast.
That's right. But it's not physically possible, right? And so it's not about attending their event. It's about building a relationship with them. So tonight, I was supposed to have a client. I'll use myself as an example now. Tonight, I was supposed to have a client. One of my daughters has a volleyball game. I wasn't going to be able to make it. Wasn't planning on making it. She knew I wasn't going to make it. Well, if I can make it, great. I'll go. And so I'm planning on going because my client moved to a different night. No big deal. But if I didn't make that volleyball game, that's not going to change my relationship with her, because my relationship is not built by sitting in the stands. My relationship is built by building a relationship with her. And so it's doing the things. And so that's what I grew up in. And so that's what we've done more of, which is it's more about growing in intimate relationships with them. And the other thing, I actually kind of took a little bit of notes or wrote down you told us the topic a little bit ahead of time, not much, but a little bit. So I wrote down a couple of notes, and one of them was personality. I've got kids that, like my son wants me to show up to his game. That's what he wants. So I show up to more of my son's games than I do to the daughter that I talked about tonight. And she's fine. And he's fine.